So our next scripture reading this morning comes from the book of Genesis, chapter 32, verses 22 through 31. That same night Jacob arose, and taking his 2 wives, 2 maidservants, and 11 children, he crossed the ford of Jabbok. After taking them across the stream, he sent across all his possessions. Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Said the other, "What's your name?" He replied, "Jacob," said he. "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel. For you have striven with beings divine and human, and have prevailed." Jacob asked, "Pray tell me your name." But he said, "You must not ask my name." And he took leave of him there. So Jacob named that place Peniel, meaning, "I have seen a divine being face to face, yet my life has been preserved." The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping on his hip. That is why that's where it stops there. If you want to hear what happens, that's why the children of Israel this day don't eat the thigh muscle, which is on the socket of the hip. Interesting part out of Israelite history. So Jacob, in his meeting with the angel, and his wrestling with the angel. So it was a family conflict. Jacob had gotten into it with his brother Esau. And it wasn't like Jacob wore Esau's clothes without asking, or like he took Esau's car out for a spin or something. Jacob swindled Esau for his birthright. And at this point in the story, time had passed. They'd grown up, had families, and the time came for Jacob to meet up with his brother. But Jacob was with his wives, his children, his servants. So Jacob sent them all ahead so that they wouldn't be caught up in the middle of the drama that Jacob expected with his brother Esau. So he was all alone. Then, out of nowhere, it happened. A stranger showed up and began to wrestle with him. How many times have you experienced that? Just by yourself, a stranger shows up and you guys start wrestling. It's a really strange kind of event. So they wrestled. Jacob just refused to let go. Not until that man gave him a blessing. Dawn came. They were wrestling all night. Dawn came, and the man was like, "Let me go. The sun's rising. Come on, let's get on with this." Jacob's like, "No, I will not let you go. Not until you give me a blessing." Somehow Jacob knew that he was in God's presence. He knew that he needed a blessing from the Lord that would come through that strange man who showed up to wrestle him. And it was through Jacob's refusal to let go of God that he was, in fact, blessed. So much, actually, that his name was changed. His identity was changed. Jacob was changed forever. He was changed from the witty swindler getting over on his brother into a great, great man who would be remembered for all time. Jacob became Israel, one who strives with God, one who struggles with God, the father and namesake of an entire people, a nation of faith. Jacob encountered God. and it changed his life. If I could pause. Linda, could you grab Sierra? She's helping in the back, and it's time for her to be up here. So, with Jacob's encounter with God that changed his life, I couldn't help but to think about how that relates directly to camp. I'm talking about church camp, and if you ask me, that is exactly what is so special about church camp, is encountering God. So we are going to take just a few moments to hear from Sierra as soon as she gets in here. What you find in the picture up there, that's just an all-camp picture. So you see all the campers, all the counselors. If you see the big red blob over on the bottom right-hand corner, yeah, that's Sierra there. Yeah. And Onikia is there just like a row behind Sierra. So they're both there. And actually, we wanted to get an opportunity for Onikia to share something, but she's back in Florida now. We're trying to work out a video thing, but it hasn't quite worked out yet. If we manage to get something figured out, we'll share it in a following Sunday. But as for now, let's hear a little bit from Sierra about her experience at camp.
Okay. Can you move your thing? Hi. I really enjoy church camp a lot, and like it's really important to me because like all the stress that you have at home, it like just, well, not my stress, I don't have a lot of stress, but like all your problems or something that you want to get away from, you can just like go to camp and like just, it's like a clean slate, like a blank piece of paper, and like you're fine. And like you find people that you can like really connect to more than you have to try to find at home. Like you even have to try, like people will come to you, or you'll accidentally come out to people, and like you'll be accepted either way. And like it feels really good, and like you feel like you matter. Like I can't explain it, but a lot of love and stuff is always at church camp, and you can see God through that. And we have this thing called Vespers, and it's like church, but it's like in different areas. So our group is a family group, and it's when you have a little group of kids, like 7, 8 to 12 or something like that, and that is like your family group. And our Vespers that our family group held, we did a life with God and a life without God. And so we had this little, it was like a new clubhouse, and you had to look downstairs that had like nothing, like it's just blank walls and everything. And we made that like a life without God. We made them come in at night, and it was dark, and we just stood there. And our group had flashlights, so we just stand there in the dark. And our group said words like lonely, hopeless, lost, everything. That's what life would be without God. And then we went upstairs where we were singing Sanctuary and Here I Am to Worship, and that was life with God. And you had everyone like greeting you like, hi, how are you doing? And then you had more people from our family group saying like happy words like found, happy, bright, lovable, and like everything that's like a life with God. And a different family group had these like little prayer cards that weren't like the ones here, but like you would write something that you want to pray for, and you don't put your name on it, you'll just hang it up on this billboard. And then people will go up there and just take whichever one they would, and then they'll pray for that person. But they don't know who it is, they'll just pray whatever they wrote on the card. And you can see like by the end of the camp, like everyone else was like feeling more happy, and like that people actually did it and like prayed for it and just didn't like put them to the side like I'll do this when I get home, or I'll do this time. And so I don't cry at church camp. I don't cry like a lot of people did, but like the only time that I cried was during this Vesper service that a different family group held. And we went out in this little thing. It was like a field, And we were all just standing there, supposed to stand there with our arms straight down our sides with our eyes closed. And there was music playing, but no one knew what was going on. And people would just come around from their family group and hug you and like whisper in your ear, "You matter," or you're meant to be here," or "You have a purpose," and like, "I love you," and like, you don't know who it is, but like they're just like saying it to you. And like I started crying because like it just involved emotion. But then at the end of camp, you have this thing called a hug train. And after you do your vesper service and whatever, you all stand in a line, and someone will start off, they'll go around hugging everybody, but then after you get hugged, you're supposed to go. And so like you get to hug every single person and talk to them, saying goodbye and all that. And in my family group, we have these things called prayer partners, where you're supposed to go have conversations with about topics and everything like that. And my prayer partner was this girl named Whitney. So, like, by looking at her, you couldn't tell anything was wrong in her life. Like, you're just like, "Oh, she's so happy, a ball of joy." And like, she is the one that her brother committed suicide. Her mom died of depression of her brother committed suicide. She's living with her grandma, and like, you couldn't even tell, because like, I don't think she covers it up, but I think she like lives with it. Like, she's got used to it. And me and her really connected. Like, that was my best friend at church camp. So, like, what does camp mean to me? Like, you just find people, and like, again, you be accepted. Like, also, you find where you stand with God. We had this, he was like the main leader of the church named Brian. He would do these like little worships before we went to Vespers, just to get us in the mood, because we usually have like this thing called campfire, which is like a bunch of activities and singing songs and skits and everything like that. And we would then go to his little worship. And there's a thing about this bike, like the bike representing where you are with Jesus. Are you the one that's still checking out the bike, saying, "Has nice paint on it, these wheels are really nice, this could be good"? Or are you the one that's on the back of the bike, letting God steer you through like the storms and the rain? Or are you the one on the front, where you're taking God's guidance, but also making your own choices? I think that I'm still trying to find the bike shop. Even though it wasn't an option, like, I couldn't understand, like, because it was like the first worship we had. I'm like, why are we talking about a bike? What's a bike have to do with Jesus? Like, but it took me a minute to understand what he was trying to say. And that one really got to me. And there's another one that I really hooked onto, which was it represented a stool. And again, I was like, we're really doing this, another stool. What's a stool have to do with Jesus? But one of the legs represents action. The other one represents study. And the third one represents prayer. And the seat represents fellowship. And like, so you have to take action, like clothing the naked and feeding the hungry and everything like that. But then you pray that they'll get help, or like you'll help, or whatever. And then you'll study, like reading the Bible. And fellowship is just everything that makes all that together. So, why should kids go to camp? Why not? Like, it will change you, like, not for the bad, but for the best. Like, even though, like, you'll come in there with a bunch of problems and stuff, you'll leave, like, none of them even existed. Like, there's a guy named Isaac, and he's now a freshman in college, but he was a graduate senior there. And he was so happy all the time, always smiling, always making jokes, always doing everything, but he was also mature at the appropriate times. But then, like, at the last day, he told us our story. And like everyone was shocked. Like he tried to commit suicide, and like you couldn't even tell by his outer image that he would even try something like that. But it's most definitely an advantage to people that don't go to church camp. Like you'll feel more wanted, you'll be stronger with God, your relationship will be better. And yeah, I enjoy Camp Bedford. So.
Just stay here. No, you can sit down, but I mean...
You just told me to sit.
Amen. So yes, church camp, a place to encounter God in community. At camp, we have multiple encounters with God. Youth today are riddled with issues, as Sierra was describing. Kids have behavioral issues, lacking in respect, talking back and getting in fights, premature and overhyped sexuality, internal struggles of feeling abandoned, angry, hopeless, feeling a lack of a reason to be good and more reasons to resort to the ways of the world, and being very early in life, learning to be mirror images of so many things that are wrong with the world. But at camp, these same youth of all backgrounds, some having it easier, some having it harder, some from healthy backgrounds, some from unhealthy backgrounds, some who experience the worst of the worst. All these youth come together. They come together with each other to experience community as it's meant to be experienced. Accepting each other for who they are. Being there for each other to confide in. Breaking bread and sharing meals together. Praying together, worshiping, and even designing worship together, lifting each other up. It's a place where hurting turns to healing, a place where God is encountered. It's the ideal kind of community that we read about in the Bible that we're supposed to be at the church. Those passages, we read and we say, well, that all sounds great, but it's not very realistic. It's not really possible. Then we are reminded that nothing is impossible with God. Camp is one example of a place where such a community does exist. Now, to say you've encountered God, it's a statement of faith. It's not something that can be proven by science. It's a matter of interpretation. You witness these extreme acts of love and community, and you learn to interpret that as what else can it be but God. You see the beauty that is around you, and you learn to interpret that as how else could this be other than God. When Jacob wrestled that strange man who showed up out of nowhere, there was nothing but his interpretation of that event to suggest that it was God. Somehow he just knew. I think that's the same for all of us when we experience God. Somehow we just know. At camp, love is experienced in such great ways that it's hard not to recognize God's presence. And that is what I say is so special about camp. It's a place and time where you will find God, where God will find you, where you will have an up-close encounter with the Lord, which is why lives are changed for the better, as Sierra described. It's why I can come back here after 2 straight weeks of 16-hour days, yet feel revived and passionate about the year to come. Spending intense time in God's presence makes me want to be a better Christian, makes me want to be a better person. And I think that probably goes for all of us. Again, we thank you for believing in this and for believing in the God of love. We thank you for showing your commitment to church camp by supporting it and supporting us and being a part of it. So that leads us to the question which I'll leave you with today. A couple questions. When have you encountered God in your life? How has it changed your life? Not only that, but how might someone else encounter God's presence through you?